So I'm about to see if I can help us understand the layout of creation. I'm gonna start doing my invites. My main people in here. Keeps minimizing my options of who I can invite. Hey, all right now. So we're about to see if we can understand the layout and the fabric of creation and how it all works. So that's what our goal is, to try to get some understanding on the scientific and the religious explanations of creation, and find out if we can get a synthesis or a common ground between the two. So in science, they teach us that creation started at a point that they call the Big Bang. The Big Bang, they said, was all known forms of matter condensed in on itself, in existence, to about the size of a green pea. And from this, because of its density, it within itself generated so much heat that it erupted and blew everything out as we know it. Now, with the discovery of the Higgs boson in 2012, that automatically proved that that Big Bang theory is false. And it proves it in the fact that until an atom comes into existence, it cannot hold any mass. It has to, the mass has to come in existence with the atom of matter. Before this Higgs boson attaches to the framework of the atomic structure, then you can't accumulate the density of mass at a central point. Creation, there's no eruption of atomic matter or creation. So the Higgs boson discovery of 2012 shows you that the Big Bang theory is false and it can't be the origin. Now, other things to look at the Big Bang theory. Okay, if you say there was a Big Bang theory, and you need a couple of things for an explosion, which is heat, pressure, and you need a contained chamber to hold the pressure. So, like for dynamite, they use a cardboard tube to pack the nitroglycerin sawdust mixture. And for gunpowder, they use gun shells to contain the power of the gunpowder in order to shoot the projectile bullet out. So the question then becomes, if the Big Bang happened as you say, then somebody would have had to light the wick. So that means that somebody would have had to be here. So that automatically show you that the Big Bang is irrational and it doesn't meet with basic questioning from regular people that ask questions about it. So if the Big Bang is, does science have an alternate explanation? And then they have several. They have one called the electric universe, where through some type of polarization, the electromagnetic frequencies produce what we call creation, and from that, the rays of light that produce what we call spirit substance. But they don't call it that in the scientific world. In the electric universe, they're basically saying that everything is riding on a wave of electricity. Then you have another method of creation, or another scientific creation theory, and it's called the plasma theory. And the plasma theory is that we are riding in a primordial wave of dark matter. And this dark matter is some kind of way in everything, but you can't touch it and you can't see it. Then you have what you call dimensional creation, which borderline on what they call science, um, spirit science, which is metaphysics. It's more metaphysical in its origin because the dimensional creation is like prime creator being like a dome of light at the top. And from itself, it shoots down in a telescope-like fashion, what we call dimensions. And as the dimensions get closer to the ending point at the bottom, you get down to where there's 0 dimensions, which causes a mirror effect, which causes a dark side of that, which is reflective to the prime creator, which causes it to be like the antithesis, the opposite, the polar opposite, which gives you the dark and the light. That's metaphysical dimensional creation, which is a form of science that everybody be like, shh, but it's science, but shh, don't talk about it out like in front of people because they don't know metaphysics is a little bit outside of the average science's interests, and regular people won't really get that. But then you have religions. So you have your main monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and they're all generally saying that creation came by way of what they said, a word. A sound is the progeniting factor of creation. Something was verbalized, and the sound began creation, which sounds similar to the Big Bang Theory to me, because the sound would have to erupt from somewhere. The only difference is that they wouldn't go with the foolishness of packing matter in before matter can possibly exist. So it couldn't have been a condensation of matter, but it's an eruption of a word. So then this goes to what they call the harmonics of the universe that the Sufis talk about, or the song of the spheres. They also talk about it in India, in the Hindu religion, and there's various stories and cycles of creation in the Hindu stories, and a lot of their stories strongly match, parallel, and overlap with some of the stories of Egypt about creation. There's so many in the Hindu faith, I don't want to really delve off into there because that'd be a whole project by itself. But in the Egyptian tradition, they have several creation stories too, or cosmogonies. And one of them is that the noon, the primordial waters of creation, always existed. Everything that exists is within the confines of the noon. Nothing is outside of the noon because you can't escape it. Because the noon is all there is. But within this noon, this particular expression of itself charged itself with some form of energy that allowed it to become separate but sentient, but on a higher plane of thought than we are expressed on. And so in there, they're saying that Ra created itself from the noon as the first of creation, and that from there he went on to create the gods of Egypt. Now, the overlap or the synthesis comes in here, being that the Big Bang is rooted in in scientific provable methods. In part, the effects of the Big Bang is verifiable, but when you trace it back, creation tends to extend back beyond the traceable time frame matrix given for the Big Bang, which means that the time frame extends before the Big Bang. So our space-time continuum point by an eruption, a Big Bang. Now, on another video, I made mention in how we got here about a collider collapsing the fourth dimension into the third. And this is what the scientists are picking up, that they are interpreting as the Big Bang. But it was a catastrophe here on Earth. Well, Earth wasn't exactly right here either. In this part of the universe, it was a little somewhere else, but it was much bigger. But where the Mediterranean is, they had a collider like CERN, and it blew a ginormous hole in the Earth. And they were trying to what they call trap, in modern terms, would be called trap angels. They wanted to trap an angel in the physical body so that the angel can perform a miraculous feats of strength and endurance that they couldn't do, not being as realized. So the angels were able to do things once they were trapped in the physical body that a regular man can't do. So this is what they was trying to do. It's the same thing they're doing now, because they're using the same excuse, which was the search for dark matter. And dark matter being the noon itself. The dark matter that they try to harvest is the most potent form of energy that they have discovered to date. But the methods of harvesting are laborious and tedious, and they only get a small amount. So that was the excuse to build CERN, so that they could harvest dark matter at a much faster and rapider rate and develop newer technologies in order to download or extract dark matter from creation's very source. Now, creation's very source. This takes us back to what we call the plasma theory of creation, where everything is rolling through this invisible dark matter, as what they call it. And they also call it plasma. Now, this matches with the Egyptian noon, but it doesn't tell us about creation's layout, like how was it laid out now. But the creation's origin matches the noon. When they say that we are going through, cruising through dark matter in waves, in grooves and creases created by ripples. This all makes sense when you examine it and parallel it to what the Egyptians were saying about all the creation coming forth from the noon. And so we look in the Egyptian hieroglyph, and it takes it a step further if you go back. It's a real long name, but I'm going to shorten it up to the short form. It's Ta-Ert. Ta-Ert is symbolized in ancient Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt, as a hippopotamus headed woman with the woman's teats. And it was the primordial symbol of the people that predated the dynastic periods. It was their symbol that represented the Divine Mother. And when you get to how this plays out in the mythos, you get to understand how the patriarchal system covered it all up. Because what they call the noon in the description, you see Ta-Ert is in the center point of, and her full name is in the hieroglyph in the ceiling of the temple. But around there is the 12 signs of the zodiac, and she makes number 13. So this is the highest seat of heaven according to what they call astrotheology. The highest seat of heaven being held by what we would call now is the great mother or grandmother, which would be the grandmother would be the old crone in the three-phase woman. And her daughter would be represented as like the queen of heaven and earth, as the controller and the one who can rule, often at time called the 12 Sisters of Eve. And when you look at it, it started to make a little more sense because the description of how Ta'ert created the zodiac from herself gives this description is that she was everywhere because she was noon. And in herself, she opened up a placement in which to put creation. And this is the uterus that she opened up, this space within herself. She opened up a uterus. She created a portal of life within herself in order to express creation. So in order to further creation, she did something called reproduce miniatures. When you look in the sky, you see what we call stars. Now, every star is sentient, and the human being is the equivalent of a star trapped in a chunk of clay. It's the equivalent to a star trapped in a chunk of clay that comes from them collapsing fourth dimension onto the third because it operates like a slinky. And when it comes down, the two are so tightly woven together. When you talk about ascension, you're talking about the fifth dimension now, because they collapsed the third spring down in onto the fourth down in onto the third in order to trap the souls of the people. They call them just called angel. And they do have techniques for trapping different spirits. They tell you how to trap them in jars, trap them in statues, trap them in photographs, and trap them in mirrors, trap them in crystals. All this, they tell you how to trap souls. When you study conjure, you learn how to do it. So once you learn how to do it, now all you have to do to trap a human soul is increase the level of the science, meaning put in for all of the variables in the difference between the human and the crystal. What are the variables in the difference? And by doing this, it's just mathematics at that point that you could trap a human soul. And so now this is what we call our silver cord. And we are here, but we're not here. It's almost like the Matrix. And the silver cord is our artificial matrix connection. This connection, however, if severed, will shoot you right back to the line to get back into the reincarnation cycle to take the punishment all over again. The goal is to turn on the eternal light, that star within the self, that little piece of gold that's sitting in your heart chakra, that root, it's a sun. And when it does this, it burns the artificial cord, because nothing artificial of that type can stand with the real force of the true divine source. So when you open that part of the source up in you, you burn that cord, and it reconnects the original silver cord, which we call the supreme wisdom or divine wisdom or the wisdom of the ages, because this is the knowledge, the tree of the knowledge. It's the silver cord, and the tree of the eternal life being the gold, the inner deity self. And so when you learn that, when they showing you on the staff, the caduceus, the snakes represent the DNA, but the staff in the middle represents your spine. That's your middle pillar, and that's where the light shines through. And so if your spine is curved because your body is out of shape, you won't efficiently, the light won't efficiently flow. And so in the creation, when they collapsed the fourth into the third, this is how they got us trapped in here. The goal now was for all of us to remember how to turn on that light at the ascension time. At that time, everybody gonna start helping each other turn the light on by syncing with each other. And it takes place with the women first, because this is their domain. And as soon as they sync, it burned the artificial cord. Now they can't be trapped. Now what happens is all of the breaks that was put in that's released and what they call junk DNA begin to open up. And this is what they call your X-Man gene, the junk DNA. This is what they're talking about specifically, not figuratively. This specific what they're talking about because they had to give you the opportunity to discover it. They call it the X because X symbolizes the unknown, and they call it the X-Men because they want you to know they're talking about Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam X-Men, as in well-trained men that when this stuff open up, they'll be able to control this energy and control that rage and keep the rest of us from tearing this shit totally up out of blind fury. And realizing that to a level we did this to ourselves because we allow imposters to come in and insert themselves in places they shouldn't be in and to make moves on our watch that we wasn't supposed to let happen. And so the next thing happens is the noon opens up a womb. So now, when you look in the sky at night, the backdrop of the stars is totally dark, black. That's dark matter. But that's the outer walls of creation. That is the walls of the uterus of Ta'ert, the great grandmother. That's the inner self of her. That's herself. So this is why the creator gods and the ruler gods, the kings, had the conflict, because the king of the ruler gods told the rest of the ruler gods that the woman is the source of it all and that they are here by permission of a woman. And so they didn't understand what he was talking about because they couldn't wrap their mind around the idea that that everything they see around them is in a ginormous uterus, and that all of these stars we see is mitochondrial, galactic mitochondrial being expressed as above, so below in your body. On the inside of the woman, when she started turning the mitochondrials on, like them, what we call stars in the sky, and she started funneling that energy and they start hiving and connecting on a higher vibration and dancing and singing together, you know what I'm saying, and making circles around the kids and letting the kids dance and sing. When they start doing all that stuff and stop messing with these people's system, they fake schools, they fake churches, they fake mosques, all they fake stuff, they can have that. We get back to the roots. We can update all of the past to bring it to the present, and we'd be right back in the game. But we got to get to that level. And this is how we get to that level. We have to wrap our mind around what this creation situation is, because then it starts to make sense. When you realize, when they say that the noon, the primordial waters parted, and it made an opening in itself, but that don't mean that it's separate from itself. You're still within the great mother. You're still within her uterus. She just made it. Okay, now once she made it, she decided that, well, I need some baby replicas of me. And these little balls of light start popping up within her uterus, the same as when you have a baby. They start multiplying, and instead of staying together coagulated as a baby, they spread out over the whole uterus because they all their own little baby. And they all got their own little light field around them. It's the same as the way they describe the solar system and the atom. It's the same way. All of those got their own little systems. Whatever their systems is, whether it's up and down systems, spiral systems, checker systems, they have their own. And they got some stuff that's so alternative to our consciousness in the universe that if you've seen it, that you would totally ignore it and act like you didn't see it. Consciously, you won't be able to see it. But subconsciously, you'll be like, that was some sweet ass shit I just seen there. What did I just see? There's things that goes on and you can see it all, but you have to train your conscious mind to give way to the subconscious. Normally, they teach you to use hypnosis, but that doesn't teach you to control that light when it come on and you can blow something. So you see people with spontaneous combustion. They have sudden strokes, palsies, because they wasn't properly trained to turn that light on, and they turn it on and it shoot up and blow a fuse, and you call it a stroke. It's like an overload of electricity. It's like shocking you. And when it hit neuron that can't handle it, that one neuron explodes and set off a chain reaction the same way that a nuclear reaction is, and it blows a dark spot on the brain, and the energy workers can see the dark spot from a stroke. And so when we realize that the creation being all of those will look like stars on Earth, the equivalent is in the woman, and it's called a mitochondria. The same way that the star draw from the prime source to shoot out all that radiance to get hundreds of billions of light years from where it is for you to be able to see it. Imagine the woman has the same capacity to produce that level of energy in one of those mitochondria, and she got one for every DNA helix. So there, you have to have some reason why you would have the ability to generate that level of power in something that cannot facilitate it. Well, that goes with dietary value. Your dietary value in your earth heritage determines how to condition your central nervous system. Everybody not supposed to be a vegan, but everybody not supposed to be a carnivore either. There's variations according to the historical culture you come from. The way that your blood, the blood type that you have determines how much vegetation you should actually eat and what type of vegetarian you should be. All of these things are not taken into account. People just dive out the window. I'm vegan now. And then a couple months later, they can't handle it because their body is breaking down. And they don't know what they're doing. So that's what all of the old witch doctors and medicine doctors use to facilitate this body and to download that information. Now, in Africa, this was called the Zumbe ceremony, the Zumbe. Over here, we call it catching the Holy Ghost. So what they do in the ceremony is they first have to rev up the amount of electromagnetic current flowing through your central nervous system, and they do it with music, tone, rhythm, and beat. You hardly ever see no music on and the whole church shouting. But every time you see the whole church shouting, you hear the music on. There's a direct correlation. If you listen to the organ player and the drummer, they will dictate the pace of how deep the person goes into what they call their Holy Ghost. This is not a Christian thing. This is African. This is the Zumbe ceremony. It has to be done in some form. If Islam would have came over here in the place of Christianity, it would have been a part of the American Islamic experience in the African American community. But Christianity came first. So it's not part of Islam, it's part of Christianity, because the Zumbe ceremony has to condition the nervous system. And what they do is when they get them in that heightened state, that mitochondria turns on. That's catching the Holy Ghost for real. It turns on just long enough to run that system check to make sure that the body can function if it was to turn on in force. And from that one person being in the Holy Ghost state, the body of that person, especially if they're a mother, almost everybody in their family is being scanned by her to determine who need to work. Who does she need to work on when she get home? We looking at the Christian's doctrine, we ain't never use it for that. I don't even know how we got caught up in trying to use it for that, except for them hustlers. This is what we use the Christian church for, because we had to keep the African chondria under the table. So now the mitochondria of the woman can facilitate massive amounts of energy. The energy is balanced out with the man because the man can't control or regulate mitochondrial input-output because he is a ruler god, he's not a creator god. So he has to create a geometric symbol. And this is why the patriarchs had the harems to corrupt the process and to make the women not want to participate because they were so oppressed under that patriarchal system, and they didn't understand there's a difference in polygamy, polygyny, and polyandry. They're all different and they all have their purposes and they all do different stuff. Like polyandry, a woman with multiple men, It's gonna happen. Y'all finna see it. All of those dudes that's mistreating these ladies, I'm talking about them pretty dudes with them swole up. The dude that every woman want is the dude that every woman want. But he ain't doing his work because the women are catering to him right now because he's the standard. But when the standards shift from superficial to substance, he ain't gonna be able to keep up. So you're gonna have this 9-volt nigga trying to download this 250,000 volt woman, and he gonna blow a fuse. So you're gonna have a woman that's gonna have to take care of all. She's gonna take care of them in batches, polyandry. She's gonna have her male harem. It's gonna happen because they're not gonna be able to function without her because she didn't blew their fuse. She's responsible for them now. They're gonna be following her around like sick puppies. Right now, you see them, they out there with their chests out, slapping her down, kicking her under the shopping cart, spitting on her, talking about that ain't my baby, knowing all the kids here, talking about ain't none of them, man, I ain't never slept with you. Lying, no, he lying. He know he lying, but he just trying to humiliate her. That's the same one gonna be trying to get other people to help him figure out how to control her, and they gonna all be stuck in there watching Madden together, froze together, not knowing what to do, like sick puppies, trying to oppress her. Her energy not gonna allow it, but now because she didn't overblow all their fuse, she responsible for them. She didn't learn to control herself either because she was being too oppressed. So now they responsible for fucking her up, and now she responsible to take care of their fucked up ass because neither one of them did their work. And so these women gonna be downloading this energy. They need to know it's coming. They need to know that they gonna feel like snakes all over their body. That ain't no damn snake. That's electricity in the dome. That's the electricity in the dome. Don't panic. That's you. You getting your power. Just take it in, absorb it, control it. You know, practice using it. Practice moving it in different parts of your body. Practice controlling it. You know, if you feel the electromagnetic current and you got dreadlocks, practice making one of them move with the electromagnetic current. You'd be surprised the shit y'all gonna be able to do when y'all learn how to control y'all energy field, because y'all gonna turn on and turn up. You are gonna be not able to function. Regular guys not gonna be able to function. So we gonna have those sisters that was just gonna look. His punishment is her get back, but her punishment is her get back. It's her punishment is her get back. His punishment is her get back. It's the same punishment she gotta endure. His punishment and her punishment, both of them is her get back. She still gotta be connected to this low life piece of crap, and that's her punishment. But while he's at her mercy, that's his punishment. It's the same punishment because you judge by your sins, not for your sins. What you did in the past judges you today. It's not what you did. Did you make penance? Did you attempt to make penance? Did you do anything to try to make it right? And if the opportunity presents itself, did you try to make yourself better? That's what it's all about. Did you try to make yourself better? Because we're trying to move from mortals to immortals. We're trying to move from humans to gods. In order to do that, we got to recognize when we did something wrong. I was wrong. You know, I'd be the first to say I would womanize, abuse her. I don't want no parts of it. It don't feel right. And it's just offset the whole structure and the whole family matrix. When we look at why we deal with each other and we in creation, it don't go with the layout. So then we have to try to figure out why is it not going with the layout and what is the layout? And so the same energy that reestablish it is the same uplifting energy that's going to be coming through the mitochondria. They call it divine love. This is the actual prime creator coming through the women to create the next phase going into the next reality, because we finna go back into a whole nother dimension. And this is the foundation of the whole creation system. So the men are going to, the men that's been doing the work are going to be more men. They're going to be more masculine, but they're going to have a different way of interacting with the women. It's not going to be an oppressive interaction. The interaction is going to be more of a, hey, we're going to work together, we're going to build this empire interaction versus hey, come over here and do what the hell I said. You need to be in the kitchen barefooted, pregnant, cooking. That's not how it's going to work in the next phase, because we're going to be going to the way humans are supposed to live, like humans. We're not supposed to live like reptiles. And that's what we've been teaching, because reptiles automatically separate themselves. They separate from each other. And that's what they've been trying to condition humans, mammals, to behave like reptiles. That's how divide and conquer work. If they get enough of us to behave like reptiles, it becomes automatic. And so when we go back and we trace the creation, whose creation is in her womb, what we call this existence, and it's in the womb of her. From her, she reproduced herself, but in order to reproduce herself within herself, she had to create something called polarities. And this is not gender, but more like electromagnetic polarities, positive and negative, and it'll be expressed later on as gender and as the foundation of the gender contract and maintaining the balance of might in the free will universe. Because in order for the ruler gods to not take advantage of the creator gods, and in order for the creator gods not to be taken advantage of by the ruler gods, they had to have a give and take. So in the Osirian story, the contract between him and the creator, he's supposed to be creating himself, but the contract was that he would be able to live his life eternity, but not through the one straight shot. He would do it through procreation. He would recreate himself through procreation. That's why he came to Earth, to procreate himself. And then his counterpart, Aset, she didn't have the restriction. So that means that she didn't have to die. She could come and go as she pleased because she didn't have the restriction. Osiris has to come, raise up, die, go back through the whole process all over again. He has to go through that process. He got to go to the underworld, come back up to here, make sure his kids straight, go back in the underworld, come back up, clean up the dirt. That was his agreement when he was slain by his brother Set, in order for him not to be doomed to the underworld for eternity. He chose to have himself to be reproduced, to have eternal life through reproduction, or being born over and over again. And at a certain point, then the clock ends and the contract is up after the order of the gods. That means that between them, their contract is their contract, and the time frame is so far-fetched and linear time matrix is made, but to them, they the gods, they live forever, so time is irrelevant to them. They're on the outside of your time-space continuum. They swim in the noon. They swim in the noon. They swim on the outside of your creation system. Therefore, they're not subject to the rules and the laws of physics and metaphysics that we are. But at times, they can leave the noon and come into the physical creation, but they have to go through the processing and the refinement of a physical form in order to be able to deal with the reality of the three-dimensional fixed position reality. And this is what makes the gods on Earth such a a different understanding than what we've been given, because they call them nature netters in Egypt. The netters being those controlling the aspects of nature. Then you got all of your numbers. You got your Ennead. Then you got your counselor 24, your counselor 42, your counselor 72. Then you have your sacred 3. You know what I'm saying? Your holy 4. You got all these different numbers. We looking at them as they counting to something. We don't know the hell they counting to. They counting expressions of energies that comes in at different points. The number tells you at the intensity of the frequency, and the depiction, if it's represented by, say, Anubis, is telling you that it's a dark energy coming from the underworld and it's coming in at a rank of about 4. Boom, there you go. You got him in this position, in this place. You know what it is. But it's so obvious that you can't see it, because they want you to look at it as being other than what it is. The melanated people that are direct products and descendants of those bloodlines, when they go and stand in front of the hieroglyphics, if they knew how to meditate and hit what they call alpha state. In the alpha state, the mind, the hieroglyphics are no longer sitting pictures. It's like you watching the cartoon. They become animated and they move about in your mind's eye freely to tell the story in the form that's specific to you as an individual and where your energy level at that level of your development. So the story might be real simple the first time you get it, but then you might go back to take somebody else so to see if they had the same experience. Now your experience is on a whole different level because you didn't downloaded all that information. Now you looking at the same pictures the last time. You was in kindergarten and they gave you coloring, and now you in a university and they're giving you trigonometry, and you're like, where'd that come from? Because your brain will process it whether you accept it or not. And that's why they have Egyptian terms, Egyptian words are hardwired into every language on earth. Egyptian words. And you can see them even in the word Baphomet. The first word is the Ba, and the Ba is the Egyptian word for spirit body. And they break these words up and they rearrange them to confuse you. Isis, Israel, Isis, Ra, and Aya. L in Egypt is A apostrophe A, is Aya. And that's Egyptian. Israel, Isis, Ra, and El. Abraham, Ab is heart in Egypt. Ra, we already know what that is in Egypt. Chem is another Egyptian word. The chemicals, the chemistry, all of it is there. They telling you that when all of the Israelites, they can't function, so who do they have to? Who they guys send them to? Their punk ass guys said, go over there to Egypt. They got some bad motherfuckers. They'll feed y'all. So how you think Moses ended up there? How you think that Joseph ended up in Egypt? They went there because they had to take over? No, they went there because they couldn't take, they punk ass guy couldn't take care of them, so they had to send them over there to ours. And so those stories are to trigger responses. And just like the African use the Zumbe ceremony in the Christian church is the Holy Ghost, every religion that encounter African conjure, we got a dog in that fucking fight. Every religion, every one of them, the Buddha, the Krishna, it don't matter. We got a dog in every fight. We got that ray of light that is from that old dark land, that primordial noon on earth is known as your Serengeti plain, your great forests of the south, talking about the southern part of Egypt. We're going into the forest, and when you start realizing they telling you your story in bits and pieces and they got it broke up so you can't put it back together. Somebody got to put this shit back together. And you never know putting the puzzle back together what it do to you in here. It do something to you in here. Um, this is the alchemy. This is the processes that all of the hieroglyphics is telling you that you're going to go through. So when you start looking at all of their creation stories, whether it's the Big Bang, the plasma theory, the electric universe theory, which is the polarized aspect in the noon, because the noon created itself in polar opposites in order to express itself to itself. It had to make an opposite because it can't express, two lights can't express themselves to each other. So you have to express yourself to yourself. So you have to create a mirror effect, an opposite, an opposing view of yourself for yourself to examine. And that's why we got a mirror today. That's our reference. Why do you go to the mirror? Vanity. Why do you go to the mirror? To examine. But you're looking in the mirror. Yes, I am in myself. Okay, now it's time to stop looking in the mirror to examine yourself and start looking inside and examine yourself. You got so caught up on the mirror, you forgot that you are projected from within here. You are a projection onto the mirror, onto the lens. It's a sneaky and subtle way of getting across the checkerboard, the mirror. And that's why they use what they call the magic mirror. It's sneaky and it's a cheat to get across the checkerboard. Anyway, so in the creation stories, the Noon in the Egyptian story put all of the pieces together that all of the other scientists are chasing. And this goes back to what Francis Cress Welsing said about white supremacy be having a unified field theory effect. It makes sense. Because going back to what the unified field theory is of Albert Einstein, being that all things are connected. Yes, we are all connected through the woman on Earth through mitochondrial, and her mitochondrial syncs directly to a similar microorganism that Earth itself produces, that they use to make that thing over there in Babylon that got us off in this situation. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But in the creation, this is how everybody try to slant their version of it by taking it all apart and showing you one string of a candy cane and telling you that this is the whole candy cane. But if you put all the strings together, you put the candy cane back together, you see what it's supposed to look like. And so they take us and fragment us by separating religion and science and politics and religion. They separate them all because they don't want you to ever look at it from a unified field theory patterns. And this is why they had their Fibonacci sequence and their golden ratios, and all of those philosophers had to write that stuff down in order for them to be able to understand how to use creation's pattern while they do their dirt, in order to follow the rules of doing their dirt without the backlash of them losing their right to ascend and their right to power. So if they follow, they can do all the dirt they want to, as long as they follow a certain protocol and it's not interrupted. And that's why that back this famous quote to say, in order for evil to succeed, good men need only do nothing. Because as long as the good men that see what's going on don't do anything, then the tyranny reigns. The tyranny continues. But as soon as the good men that can see it start saying they lying to you, they separated the critical thinking and the practical problem solving out of the main parts of every curriculum, where it teaches your child to be a man-wrote zombie as opposed to a free-thinking child. They don't want you to live like a human. They want you to live like a reptile. They don't want these women to get their power back. They want to keep them subjugated. They don't want to stop raping the babies. They want to keep initiating the rites of the pain. They don't want to stop eating them and drinking their blood. They want to continue with the blood rites. So, I mean, it's not real hard to see the more favorable condition to be in. Now, a lot of people tell me I shouldn't say nothing, but I can't rest with myself and not say nothing. I got to try to get the message out so everybody understand exactly what the hell is taking place on this damn planet. Because I started off to be a wise dude and do right and try to find my way in heaven. That was all. None of these answers consciously. Subconsciously, I was chasing every one of them. Consciously, in my front mind and my nigga mind, I ain't had none of that stuff on my mind. When I was doing all my Negro stuff, all that ghetto hood bang stuff, none of this wasn't at the forefront of my mind. But everything I did, I paid attention as if I was being taught something. And then I began to connect dots. And when I started seeing stuff and I started trying to explain it to people, and they automatically assumed that I was detached from reality and that I had some type of psychological disorder and I couldn't function in the realm of regular people. And they on some bullshit. Okay. So they want everybody not in no better condition than me, want me to live my life how they tell me to live it. But I can't tell them how to live their life. So if I feel that the world being left on its current trajectory is not going to be an inhabitable place for my 4-year-old son, I'm sitting here looking at all of this tyranny take place. And my son sit here and hear me tell people the answers to why stuff, all they got to do is this and that'll be fixed. Now he gonna grow up to be a man one day and he gonna come to me and he gonna be like, Dad, man, I heard you telling everybody all the answers and then none of y'all niggas do nothing. Me to clean up. How I'm supposed to feel and what I'm supposed to tell him. I thought that I would be, keep my mouth shut until we wasn't none left. There wasn't no more of us. I figured, why not be a bitch ass motherfucker and just sit down? Everybody else is. They know how to fix it. I can't do it. I got this thing in me that tell me to kick a whole lot of ass and take a whole lot of names. I don't really care about names. I don't remember the motherfuckers no way. But that ass kicking thing sound real tempting to me. But I made a promise to mama that I would always try to find a better way. In doing so, you tend to recognize stuff that you would have overlooked before. And that all conflict, all war, every conflict, it's not, most of them are physical. Everybody is jockeying for position verbally and in written language. Nobody's the fight is the overspill. That's when nobody can't out talk or outwrite each other. Then somebody got to give, and the other person don't want to surrender, so they go blow each other up, and that's the cause of war. But as long as they can keep that pen flowing and the words screaming through the speaker, you won't see no bombs. So that got me to thinking, why is that? In my studying of the great general, Sun Tzu says it's better to win one battle by strategy than win 1,000 by combat. And I put that lens up to every potential to whoop a motherfucker ass. Every potential to get somebody to full-fledged, unadulterated guerrilla whoop down. And I had to put it up to the lens of, is this the battle necessary, or is it an easier battle to win it by guile, by negotiation, by my tactics, strategy. And most of the time, I'll be so disappointed that it's so easy to resolve the matter strategically than to test some shit up. And I'd be frustrated with myself because I wanted to test some shit up. But from a strategic standpoint, that wouldn't be a wise general to just randomly tear shit up. That'd be a damn fool. Because if you randomly tearing shit up, you're depleting your resources. You deplete your resources. You scatter your resources. You intimidate your allies, make them not want to work with you. So it's not really a good thing to go around dribbling everybody like basketballs in order to get the point across. And so, Mama saying find a better way, I had to go and study negotiation tactics because I had to figure out how to get past this, and I had to take out some legal right practicing how to write legal orders and contract, all that kind of crap. So I learned. So now we're in a position where all this shit's so clear in front of my face. It's like on the inside, I feel like a Pepsi bubbling at the mouth every time I start talking about bringing us up to the next level. And the layout of creation is simple. Creation is a matriarchal, universal system. The patriarchal system is a organizing system for the matriarchal system. The whole network is laid out like ant colonies and beehives. By analyzing ant colonies and beehives, you get to see that the universe is in the same structure as a matriarchal family. Then you start examining other types of matriarchal creatures in order to determine which type of matriarchal network system you fit in. As mammals, we're going to always be matriarchal, even if we fight for a patriarchal system that's counterproductive to our true nature. At heart, say something about one of them motherfuckers' mamas, and you will find out what I'm talking about. All us matriarchal, no matter how much you try to slant away from it, it's in our heart. It's part of who we are as humans. So our understanding of women, the position of women, and the level of respect, and the understanding of the relationship of the women changes the whole interaction on the human scale. It make people not be so miserable. It make people got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work, roll out of bed instead of drag out of bed. You know, the whole system is harmonious to human life. Live like these serpents. You can't keep living like these reptiles, because all of this divide and conquer, this you got to get yours, I got to get mine, and we can't work together, shit got to go. Because that's irrational from every aspect of, or every field. If you look at it politically, it doesn't make sense to squander your resources. Work together with others in your political party. It's just that simple. So if you look at it from a military standpoint, you can't squander your resources. You have to organize them and coalesce them, bring them together and use them for their most effective purpose. If you look at it socially, in social interactions in people come in, and you can't have the resources that people need in the social environment all over the place. They got to know where the food court at. They got to know where the pharmacy at, right? They have to have things in a particular order. All that is drawn from what's matriarchal in them. These are all of the systems that's set up. It doesn't make sense to squander your resources. So why are we doing it? We squandering our resources because the enemy told us to. He told us we shouldn't get along, and that we shouldn't respect our women, and that we should eat our babies like they do, because if we don't eat them, they'll eat them for us, and that we ought to milk them for their blood because that mixes well with red wine. That's what they want us to feel, the same way they feel. But that's not what we are. We're not of that fabric. They something different than we are. You know, and we just went through a great ordeal to save a whole cross-section of humanity from not being able to allow the opportunity to sin from the rotten bastards doing their dirt. So here we are, and the whole creation layout is a universal matriarchal layout. And the patriarchal system is to maintain the order within the matriarchal system. They are to work hand in hand like yin and yang. And when they're working together hand in hand, you can't tell one from the other. But when they're working in opposition, they make the women look like feminists and they make the men look like chauvinists. That's the opposition of the two forces. But when they work in harmony across there in that mirror, and they get the vibe and wave on that same frequency, and then they start doing that dance of the ages, and it takes everything to a whole nother level. And that's why the women have to start dancing with the babies, because it's going to uplift the spirit of the babies. And then when the other women see the spirit of the babies uplifting, it's going to uplift them. It's a whole process. It's a whole galactic dance of unity and harmony, going back to my getting away from this psychotic stuff. So I hope I was able to give y'all some motivation and some insight into the fabric of creation in this matriarchal layout. And from there, I don't know what my next one gonna be. I had to pull my Tupac video because I put somebody in danger, giving out the information before the time was allotted. I done it too early, jumped the gun. Not the entire video, it's just like a couple of segments that I have to edit out, and I will be able to put the rest of it back up. But though that whoever it is in there, I don't want nobody blood on my hand, because I don't want to perpetuate blood rights into this up and coming new age where we have a chance to finally get rid of the tyranny. So I will have to cooperate with my elders on that and not put that video up without editing it, because we don't want to perpetuate the blood rights, that low vibrational standard of destruction and oppression. We don't want to keep that up. So I don't want to contribute to it. So I had to either find out how to edit the video and put it back up so y'all can get the, because it's a lot of good information in there. I was kind of like listening to myself. It's some things that I would have did a little different, but I don't want nobody blood on my hands. I got enough of that growing up. I'm a grown man now. Things different. And I don't want nobody blood, especially, I don't want nobody blood on my hands, especially at this time. This is not the time for us to be accumulating blood on our hands and collecting blood sacrifices. I'm not in on that one. I'm not going to perpetuate that. That's not mellow. And so I'll leave y'all with that. And I hope y'all had a good time listening to this one. And if y'all have any questions, leave them in the comment box. I'll come back and review them. And if there's some questions, I'll either answer them or it might give me a good motivating content for the next live. So with that, I thank y'all for coming on here, check me out, and hopefully we can do it again soon.